Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the murder of Saima Khan. I found this case very interesting to look into. Just who ended up doing what? I'm not going to split in the very beginning, but you'll see what I mean. This case was suggested by Ian, so thank you for that. I appreciate any suggestions you guys have. And of course, if you do have any more, please do let me know. So the case begins in Bedfordshire in England, and we are going to be going to a 21-year-old Pakistani man called Hafiz Rahman and another family called the Khan family. Now, Hafiz was brought over from Pakistan as part of an arranged marriage. So he probably lived in Pakistan, possibly not earning very much money, things like that. So he's asked to come over to the UK for an arranged marriage. And he agrees. It'll get him out of... I'm not saying that he was in poverty, because I don't know. But if you can think that he possibly wasn't earning very much money and things like that, the UK would have been like a really good chance for him to earn more money, make a life for himself, start a family, things like that. So anyway, he agrees, and down he comes to the UK. He is going to marry their eldest daughter, so he goes to England and he moves in with the family. And it was something that, you know, was done. Generations of the same family had lived in the same house, and it was normal for that to happen. So he goes down, he moves in, and he fits right in. Let me introduce you to the Khan family, who all, like I said, they all live in the same house. So you've got the parents, Mr. and Mrs. Khan. I'm not sure of the names. They had 4 kids. So you've got 2 older sons, who I couldn't find the names of either. And then you've got Saima, who was the eldest daughter. And you have Saba, who was the youngest daughter. Saima was 18 at this point, so obviously she was old enough for marriage. Saba was 10. There was 8 years difference between the sisters. She was 10 years old. And I believe they actually lived in Holland for a stint before that, before they moved to the UK in 2009. To live with, obviously, in the house with the parents. The sisters were very close. Yeah, there was 8 years between them, but they would do things together all the time. They would go out together, spend loads of time with each other, and were often seen, you know, out together. Saba actually described them as 2 souls in one body, so you can imagine that's how close they were. And Saima actually had a job as a co-worker for the elderly. So Hafiz comes from Pakistan, and you could assume that it might be like a difficult transition for him or something like that, but he adjusted pretty quickly. He fitted in with the family, you know. Even Saba, who was 10 and he was 21, really looked up to him and really liked him. He just slotted right into that family perfectly. And he adjusted to life in the UK and married life very quickly. The pair got married. He ended up getting a job as a taxi driver. And then they ended up starting a family together, and they had 3 children. Now, it was very normal for a Pakistani family to, like I said, it had happened before. There was lots of generations living in that house previously. It was a normal thing. So you've got the parents, then their children, and then their children, and they're all living in that same household, and they didn't move out. They would just be there to support each other. And Saba was happy to take on the auntie role, you know. She loved her sister's kids. She would often babysit for them, things like that. But you've got to think at this point, Saba has grown up around her sister's husband, right? She gets to the age of 18 in 2011, and she has developed feelings for Hafiz. At this point, her sister was 26 years old. And Hafiz, I believe he was 3 years older than her, so he's like 29. And the pair did start having an affair. It was a secret affair. I don't believe that really anybody knew about it. It actually lasted for 4 years, during which time they would obviously have sexual intercourse together. It was like she would do it not in the house when people were around, things like that, because obviously they didn't want anybody to find out, because he was a married man with children. And she became obsessed with him, and that obsession would turn bad. it would really turn bad. But you've got to imagine on her part, like, he was always there. She'd never really dated anyone or anything like that. And she just got an infatuation with him, and that was that. And then he's returning her affections, which, I don't know, he's seen her grow up from the age of 10. It's, in my eyes, creepy, but there you go, that's what they did anyway. And then he's returning it, so obviously she's flattered by it, and it makes her feel amazing. Because they were obviously engaging in sexual intercourse, Saba did get pregnant, but she, to terminate the pregnancy, I don't believe it was something she wanted to do, but obviously they were secret, you know, and she did end up having a termination in 2012. I did actually read that Hafiz did actually go down and, well, I've read two. He either went down to the mosque to ask people there, like people of religion, or he went to a lawyer, because I don't know, I've read both sort of stories. There's sometimes confusing information on this, and there's some contradiction. I've just gone with the more prevalent one. So yeah, if you find any information that is incorrect, I'm sorry, but I've tried my best with, there's just a couple of different stories, like how it actually all happened, so there you go. But anyway, say he goes to a lawyer and he tries to find out whether it was legal to have two wives. So he literally wanted to marry them both, which of course they told him no. And his and Saba's relationship was very up and down, like a roller coaster. Like, he would focus a lot of energy on her, then that would drop off, and he would focus a lot of energy on his wife and kids and on his family. So it was very like her or her, it wasn't sort of split. And then in 2015, the family welcomed their fourth child together. Saima and Hafiz had another baby. And this is when they really started talking about potentially moving out. And I mean, they have 4 children at this point. You've got the 2 sisters that were living there, the husband, their 4 kids, and then the grandparents as well. As you can imagine, it's probably, I don't know how big the house was, I'm not going to pretend to know that, but it's probably pretty crowded in there at this point. And so they decided that it was time to, you know, they thanked them for everything that they'd done. They really appreciated everything that the family had done for them, but they were thinking about, you know, getting a house on their own, because obviously their family was growing. And as you can imagine, Saba was really not happy with this. She did not want to share Hafiz in the first place. She wanted her sister's life, her sister's family, her sister's husband, and her obsession with him just turned really, really dark at this point, and she felt like she was losing control of it all. And with him not being in a house with Saba, it's thought that potentially he would have focused more on his own wife rather than her, so she probably would have lost the affair that they were having too. This is when desperately she tries to figure out what she can do, and she gets in touch with a so-called witch doctor, or I've also read that they are called black magicians, where they deal in black magic and things like that. And she asked, well, she paid this person £5,000 to put a spell on her sister. So I read a little bit into these black magicians, and basically, to become a black magician, obviously, if you believe it, you believe it. If you don't, you don't. That's fair enough. It's up to you guys. But it was said that you had to go to a graveyard, get some, either a bone or a body or something like that. You'd have to pray over it. You'd have to do this ritual over it. You would call on spirits, call on demons, and then you would be assigned a demon. Apparently that's just one of the things that you have to do, but then they don't believe they could fully control it, but this demon would do their bidding, I guess, and that is what she wanted. She wanted them to cast a spell on her, and it could have been something like, not necessarily like strike her dead kind of thing, but strike her with an ailment, do anything to split them up, basically. So I believe that is what she was looking for, and I mean, well, it didn't really work. She got scammed out of the money, and when that failed, she began doing Google searches, doing research of her own. She began looking up how to kill someone, how to get away with murder, where to buy poisonous snakes. She also Googled a page and spent some time on that one, and it was called 16 Steps to Kill Someone and Not Get Caught. She did various searches on different ways of how to kill someone. Along with them searches, she intermittently looked at Hafiz's Facebook page too. She also did a search on whether falling in love is allowed in Islam. Then on the 23rd of May in 2016, she put her sick plan into action. At this point, Saba was 27 years old and Saima was 34. And on this day in particular, the family had all gone out to a funeral. Saima was actually in work. She was an elderly carer, but I believe she was like one of those home ones where you care for the person in their own home kind of thing. So she was out at work. The parents and Hafiz were all at the funeral. Saba had said that she would watch the children. She took this as the prime opportunity to kill her sister after Googling how long a funeral was. So you can tell she's really planning it all out and trying to make sure that she has enough time for it. Taking advantage of most of the family's absences, she sent a text message to Saima saying that her youngest daughter, who was not even 1 yet, I believe, was playing up, she was crying, and she just really wanted a mum. Now, obviously, she probably was thinking that she might be poorly or something like that, and you're gonna want to see your kid if they are crying and upset, especially with them being so young. So Saima decided that she was gonna nip home early. A neighbour CCTV shows footage of Saima entering the home at 11:07 p.m. and turning the lights on. It was the hallway light, and then 45 seconds later the light goes off again. And it would remain so for just over 8 minutes, in which time Saima was brutally murdered by her own sister. So once the darkness had hit again, Saba took that time, fully dressed in black, to charge down the hallway with a knife. She began stabbing her sister. And you've got to think, the areas in which she was stabbing her wouldn't have taken her actually very long to end her sister's life, but this was a crime of passion. She was so full of anger and rage and jealousy for what her sister had that she did not stop. I believe the total stab wounds that her sister ended up with was 68, which is insane. And most of them probably would have been done after she had already lost her life. She was making so much noise down there that Saima's eldest daughter actually shouts down saying, "Auntie, are you killing a mouse?" Which is just so heartbreaking, the fact that the kids were upstairs asleep in bed and the racket had woke her up of her own mum being brutally murdered by her auntie, and she's asking questions about it. It's just so tragic. Saba then sets about making it look like a robbery. She takes her bloodied clothes, the knife, she puts them in a plastic bag. She goes back and she smashes one of the back windows to make it look like somebody else had done this and somebody else had broke in. I believe she took some family jewellery just to solidify the plan a bit more. But then she takes this bag of evidence because she wants to let people know that this has happened straight away. She takes that bag of evidence and she hides it in her room. Right? So then she rings her parents at 11:25 p.m. and it's believed by the police that she was doing this just to practice her story to see whether it were believable before she actually called them, which of course she then did call them. And they arrived at the scene. There's actually live footage of their interaction and the first story that Saima gave about the burglary and everything, and that she was in the bath and things like that. But just watch it and just see what she said and how she said it, and if you think that her behaviour is like suspicious by any means.
Came down, I literally saw her there with glass lying about around her. So I literally just ran over it. I took a scarf to cover it because I thought I was gonna, you know when you cover the wound and like stop from bleeding. And I thought,
what have you done to your hands?
She had glass, so I took the glass out, and there was glass everywhere. So I was just hugging it to me, and then
because initially they didn't really suspect her. Obviously, the crime was brutal. They cordoned off the scene like they do with any other crime scene, and the family rushed off away. Well, do you remember the evidence that she put in her room? Well, they found it. Of course they found it. So they find these bloodied clothes and the knife hidden away in her room. And they do question everyone about it. Obviously, it's in her room, but a lot of these cases, they initially wonder whether it is the spouse. So they question Hafiz, who could have easily, if he wanted to kill Saima, kill his wife, and then, hide the weapon in the sister's room to make it look like her. So they question him, but he has an airtight alibi. He was at the funeral and everyone was there with him. So it wasn't him. 8 days later, I believe they call in Saba, who was acting suspiciously in the fact that she didn't seemingly care that her sister had just been brutally murdered. She was just getting on with life. She was going to work. She just didn't seem to care. So yeah, that's very suspicious in their eyes. Because of all that, because she wasn't acting like the devastated grieving sister like she probably should have been, definitely should have been, they were very suspicious of her, and it did end up coming out that she was actually the one that brutally killed her own sister. I mean, she denied it, of course. She denied it all. It wasn't her, but they knew it was, and I don't know whether they actually had evidence tying her in. They must have had evidence on the clothes, right? She wore them, so there must have been evidence on that as well to prove it. On the 27th of October in 2016, Saima Khan actually did change her plea to guilty, and she was charged with the murder of her sister Saima Khan. She was sentenced to 22 years in prison. I believe a few years ago she tried to get parole or something like that, but that was actually denied. And it was a crime to which she never showed any remorse or any emotion whatsoever. Saima wanted her sister's life. She wanted her husband. She wanted those children. She wanted that family life that she couldn't have because it wasn't hers to have. Especially when she heard they were planning on moving out, that was like the final straw. Her obsession with him had just grown so dark at that point that she just saw red and was so furious and angry and just carried out such a brutal attack on her own sister and ended up taking her sister's life in a bitter envy. And it's apparently quite rare for like siblings, I guess, to kill each other because, you know, they're normally really close and things like that. So it's actually a crime that is not too common. And the thing that gets me as well is like when they were younger, I said it to you guys, like she described her as two souls in one body. That's how close they were. So just the jealousy and the bitterness it just crushed their relationship. And it wasn't even Saima, it was all on Saima's half. But yeah, that is the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. Anyway, that's all I have today on the case of Saima Khan. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!